And then I've mentioned this before, but we also have Sarah Cordova starting this week talking about using mentor texts to promote social justice. So that's up on my learning plan now. And what I'm also going to be working on for my target is December is changing over the PD that I would normally do for the framework regions into an asynchronous environment. So I'm working on that, and that should be coming up in December. And then other things that we've been working on, and of course I would love to hear from you all what the need is, but this is kind of where I've been looking to focus and where Jessica and I have been talking about in terms of embedding the social studies practices and curriculum writing and aligning it with the framework and the practices. And I've also been looking into creating PDs focused around writing for social studies. So that's where I'm headed, and of course, love to hear from you all how we can help as well. And then just another reminder, we do have that, and I have created that social studies website where links to different resources and all sorts of fun social studies stuff that to kind of put it all in one place, and that is linked here in the presentation, which we'll put up on the classroom when we're done here. And then Jess, if you want to just talk through some of the things that you uploaded here.
Yeah, so
take it away.
I can't click on anything because you have control of the screen. So there are a couple of new resources from the state. So the first one we have here, if you could just click on the map of New York State. Yes, Anna, I'll give you the classroom code as soon as we're done presenting. Okay, I'll put it in the chat box for you. So while that is slowly opening.
Yeah, this is the problem I had yesterday too. It's like painfully slow.
Okay, well, while that is loading, there were a couple of resources from New York State that I wanted to put up. First was the FAQ for English language learners. I know that most of you are social studies, but some of you are humanities. And in case you weren't able to come to the ELA meeting that is following this directly at 10 o'clock, we thought it would be beneficial for you to have these. So this was just released on October 30th from New York State. So you can see a lot of FAQs that are here, resources and tools that are provided, as well as some questions around testing, especially since we are in a lot of virtual environments right now. So the other tool that is listed there are the bridging documents. So you can go back to the slideshow presentation. I won't ask you to open anything else up, Corinne. All of these are in the Google Classroom as well as on the slides, which will be posted on the Western Suffolk BOCES Toolkit along with this recording. If you have somebody that needs information, they'll be able to access those from the Western Suffolk BOCES Toolkit. There is also, as I stated, the bridging documents for ELA and math for teachers to utilize to sort of keep track of where their gaps are. And so I think this is a really important tool to utilize right now because it is taking teachers, especially who are doing hybrid and remote learning, a little bit longer to get through all of their standards and practices. So this is a document that they will be able to track which standards and practices they've hit, how they did it, whether it was in person or virtually, and be able to pass that along to the next grade level teacher so they have a good synopsis of what was hit and what wasn't. It will be a way of ensuring that we fill those gaps moving from one grade level to the next in our 21-22 school year, which I cannot believe that I'm saying 21-22 school year. That's insane. The other two tools here are both from Danielson. She has been working with her team tirelessly to release assessment tools for virtual and hybrid learning, for remote learning. And so there's a self-assessment and reflection tool included, as well as an observation tool for those of you that are in charge of observing teachers in these very challenging times. Those are there to help you. And you can go to the next slide. And then last but not least, New York State has sent out their recording of their session about preparing to balance it all, which is to help everybody with balancing teaching throughout the pandemic. So it's a two-part webinar series where teachers are discussing practical strategies to confront challenges with working with blended and hybrid classes. So if you have teachers that are still struggling with that, it's a little over an hour. I think it's like an hour and 5 minutes to watch the video, and then they have a couple of sessions coming up, so that link is there for you as well. And that's my spiel, everybody. Oh, yes, these are still up there. I know that, you know, there's not a ton of time to do staff surveys, but it is important to get a school climate feel. And whether or not this falls on your plate, I put them up here for you. Panorama came out with 34 questions for staff and teachers. And what I did was I just put them in a Google form because what they had was a PDF and I knew nobody was going to want to sit down and fill out 34 questions by pencil. So I separated them into teacher and staff. It gives you feedback on things like administration, how administration is supporting, how students feel in the building, how staff feels in the building. It's a pretty easy way to gauge your school climate. And so if you want those, just contact me and I will make a copy for you. Because the links that I have, I don't want everybody sending out the same form, so I will make one just for your school district if you want them. See, I thought I was done with my spiel, but I wasn't, Corinne.
No.
And of course, these are our essential agreements. And normally we would review these at the beginning, but this is what we had agreed to do when we came together. And so before we get into our discussion, where you have control over what we discuss for the rest of the session, we're just going to remember that dialogue is to encourage authentic, honest, vocal communication, choice, what is most relevant to you. And if there's something that you want to ask or say and you don't want it recorded, just let me know and I'll stop the recording. That is not an issue. Choice, what is most relevant to you. Practice, apply learning to do something. So making sure that we're taking action with what we learn from these meetings. Reciprocity, being equal to one another. Voice, listening to different points of view and being respectful. And then finally, reflection and positive activity. Okay, and so here we are. So this time is yours. I know you don't get a ton of time to chat with one another. So any questions that you have to throw out there to the group, feel free to do so now. And as I said, if you would like me to stop recording, just let me know, okay? And you can let me know in the chat. That way it's private. Anna, I'm gonna grab that code for you now for the Google Classroom. Okay, you guys are so quiet. Do we have any questions for the group? Anything that's going particularly well with your social studies instruction that you'd like to share out, because that's always great for us to hear, things that are working really well so that we can try to implement the same things in our school district or replicate them. Quiet group this morning. Anything that you need from us that we can help you with? Anna, I just put the code in the chat.
I think everybody's feeling sleep deprived. It's been a rough week.
Actually, I have a quick question. If anyone has an opinion, we run a student equity team at the high school with our kids, and we want to do a book club, right? So one of the books we're featuring in our book club is Stamped, right? But does anyone have a recommendation for another book? We'd like it nonfiction, but we're having 9th, 10th, 11th graders reading something relevant, something about our mission and equity, but definitely nonfiction, not fiction. Any ideas?
Crystal, I'm not sure myself, but I will reach out to actually Sarah Cordova, who's doing that mentor text training that's coming up.
Oh.
I know a lot of what she uses is fiction, but I'll ask her if she knows about any nonfiction, because if there's anybody that will know, I mean, she has such a knowledge of text. So I will reach out to her and I'll put it in the Google Classroom if she has any suggestions. I think we did have a book of culturally responsive texts in the Google Classroom, so you might look there.
We could also throw that question out to the ELA group after this and see if anybody else has.
100%. So you said 11th and 12th graders?
9, 10, 11.
9, 10, and 11. Okay.
Yeah.
Have they read Malala? That would address student equity.
Yeah, is there like a specific, like just her book, you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, no, actually, I don't think so. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Michelle Sullivan just put a title in the text too, Crystal. Take a look at the chat.
Let me see. Oh, thank you.
I think both the Kendi books are good, the Stamped and How to Be an Anti-Racist. They're just good books in general for kids.
We thought about how to be the anti-racist, but because we were doing STAMP, we wanted to try and do something different. Okay. Thank you for the suggestion. I'm going to look into these. Hopefully we'll be able to do more than the 2 books. We're going to start with the 2 and see. That is something that we just started, that is going pretty well. We do, our high school student equity team is, we've been working with them since the summertime about different activities, about how to spread a message of equity and equality and justice for all within our school district. So we had 160 kids interested in joining.
Wow.
So we picked 40, we did a lottery, and we picked 40 to be what we call our planning team. And they're receiving the same cultural proficiency training that our staff has gotten. We've been working with a company in cultural proficiency training. This is our 5th year. And so now we're doing with the kids, we picked the 40 of them. They're getting the same training, and the idea is for them to then turnkey it first to those other kids who are interested and grow it from there. We're looking for them. We're going to do a book club with them. Then we're looking for them to lead book clubs to really try and empower the kids to take the message. And we had our first training session on Tuesday during election day. And I've done a lot of cultural proficiency training with our staff through the years. I'm the chair of the cultural proficiency committee for the district. And I got to tell you, doing it with the kids was so way better. It's not and the adults have always been great. It's not that they aren't great, and they've been great when we do it, but the kids were just so fantastic and just insightful, and it was a really eclectic group of kids, like kids that don't really, because like I said, we ran a lottery. It was completely random. So kids that don't usually ever speak to each other, and they were sharing experiences and talking and coming together. So it was nice. We have 5 more sessions and different things we're going to do. We're also doing, we're having the same lady we work with that does our training, the same company, is pushing into our social studies classes, 8th grade and 10th grade in March, to do a 2-part series on race and racism in the United States. So we're going to expose all of our 8th and 10th graders with that. So we'll see how that goes.
Crystal, what company do you use to do those trainings?
So we were working with Generation Ready for the past 4 years, but then that aspect of or maybe the company itself, I think they went out of business and now they're trying to come back. We worked with a woman named Natalie McGee, who I know has worked with Eastern Suffolk BOCES and other districts. She used to work for Generation Ready. When they went bankrupt, she actually has her own company. It's called Progression Partners. So we continued our partnership with them, and we continue to work with her. So that's the name of the company now, Progression Partners. And they have been so fantastic the past few years. Like I said, we've been working on this for a few years, but we're trying to grow it very much organically, right? It was opt-in training, and we've done it with bus drivers, custodians, paras, teachers. We've had parents come in. and just kind of grow it. So the first year we had 30, and then last year we had almost 100 between paras and teachers and everybody, people trained in the district. And now with COVID, it's different, you know, because we don't have coverage during the day. So we're doing it after school. And we have 5 required hours of PD contractually. So 5 of that is the required, and then we're paying them because it's a 12-hour commitment. The Equity Institute is what they call it. So then they get paid for whatever's over the 5.
Oh, very interesting. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good. We'll see.
Yeah, it seems like you really built a comprehensive program. You've got the systems and structures in place to keep it going. So it seems like it will be sustainable. Crystal, nice job.
Thank you. Yeah, we're trying. The district has been great and very supportive. We're working with Progression Partners too with our social studies curriculum. She's going to come in and kind of do an audit of our resources and what we're using, and kind of help diversify it if need be. There are parts that definitely need be, but we actually updated some of it not too long ago. So we're doing that piece of it, and we're doing a culturally responsive teaching cohort of teachers who did the Equity Institute in the past. So we have 20 teachers who they're doing that after school. We would do more if we could cover teachers, but we can't, so we're limited this year.
Right. Anybody else want to share out or have questions for the group while we're all together? Anything that you have that's that you need help with?
I had some general questions that might be interesting to see if anyone, one is like our high school is now closed for 2 weeks. So we've gone to virtual for that time at North Shore. I'm curious about whether it manifests itself in the social studies program or within the larger part of buildings. Pressure to have all kids come back, you know, in high school environments. Are you hearing, you know, we've been trying to do videos versus asynchronous learning. So rather than having live streaming, what has been the pressures on your districts and those types of things? And then similarly with social studies, completing curriculums, because we are beholden to content where is pressure of things going too fast, teachers not being able to do that under those different environments. So how is your district faring with some of those challenges? And then I'll be happy to talk at some point if anyone else is interested.
And I can stop recording if that is what's keeping people quiet.
I'm at PatMed, and we're moving into phase 2 of where we are. So currently our students are cohort 1 and cohort 2, with one group coming in Monday, Tuesday, and then asynchronous lessons the rest of the week, and then the reverse. But they're also on a 6-period day while they're in school, where periods 7, 8, and 9 meet virtually or remotely rather on Wednesdays. But our next phase is moving the schedule back to a 9-period day, and they're attempting to roll in live streaming within the next phase, but they're going to move to the 9 periods, remaining with the cohorts 1 and 2. But Wednesdays will become a full remote day where they'll run through their classes as if we were, you know, sent out for the day when the building has to close.
Did PatMed do that because of pressure, or that was planned as part of the thing all along?
Probably a mix of both. We're really receiving it's interesting because we put surveys out to the families, and we get more pressure from the elementary because our elementary they are not in every day. I know many districts do have it that way. So we're receiving more pressure to open up the elementary schools more often, and that's being looked at. But secondary, they're more apt to not want to bring them in all the time. So it is answering to what the community would like to see, but also gauging how things have been working. Of course, now that we're rolling into flu season and around the numbers are growing, there's hesitation and some concerns with that, but we're just trying to provide the best that we can, like anybody else at this point.
Yeah, I think ours is like with the asynchronous, because you're saying you're using an asynchronous model there. The social studies teachers are really struggling with, the amount of work they have to do with anything other than just doing a recording of what they did, which, kind of boring for kids. And they're willing to admit that because it's not really designed for them. They don't have time to sit and make an asynchronous full thing for several different preps on top of what else they're doing. So it becomes more of a recording with some work to do with it. So there's also the fear that you can't get through the whole curriculum. Do you guys have that same thing too, or are they teachers managing any?
For K through 6, we're in person. 7 through 12 is hybrid. But the kids are, whether they're home, in person, they're always there. It's always synchronous. But I did have a conversation with one of my teams yesterday, and they were saying at this point we would be in Egypt. And so we had a conversation like, okay, have we looked at the curriculum and have we figured out like maybe where we need to pull back on some things and, condense some topics to be able to get through what we need to get through. So that's a conversation, they were like, no, we didn't even think about that. So that's a conversation that, I need to go back and have with them and really sit down and think about where we can pull out or condense and try and get through as much as we can.
That's something that I have heard across the board with any of the districts that I'm working with, no matter what the content area is if there's a hybrid learning component, that it is just taking so much longer to get through the curriculum. It is. So that is something that's being felt across not just Long Island, but our entire state.
I think the biggest concern is if there are going to be Regents exams for our high school students, with them being hybrid, you're not getting through the curriculum like everyone's feeling. And, how is it really fair to those kids? And when will the state let us know if we are doing it, if we're not doing it, and what it's going to look like?
That's especially true for the days that we're having our buildings, and we find the high schools are this the most, where you have to go out remote for a day or two, or in some cases 2 weeks, for the amount of quarantining. And so how accessible is this for every student that's out there? So again, you talk about that equity issue.
The other problem we're having in my district is even when we do go on hybrid, the attendance is really an issue. We have students that are just habitually, whenever we go on virtual, we can guarantee they're going to be absent. It's not a matter of access to technology or Wi-Fi. We can just guarantee that they're going to be absent. So a lot of the teachers are feeling the pressure that when we do come back, if we do go hybrid, they just feel like the kids are just in completely different places and that they're constantly catching up the gap, which is causing the problem why they're falling behind in the curriculum.
Yeah, I have a similar where teachers will report to me that because they don't know what kids do on asynchronous days, because it's tougher to monitor without like making everything an ed puzzle where they have to sit and watch a video and answer questions and basically lock them in the screens all day. That they spend 5 to 10 minutes trying to review the day before, because that next cohort that comes in, the biggest thing they talk about is the flow being disrupted with the model of hybrid. And then having virtual learners, like I'm sure some places have them as cohorts or separate groups, but our district opted to have them as part of the normal classroom. So teachers are teaching the in-person, the cohort that's asynchronous at home, and then a fully remote learner. So they're all getting the same course, but it's very tough to plan meaningfully for each group.
And I think that, at least according to my teachers, that seems to be where they're saying the biggest gap is being created. It's just like the inconsistency with the absences, and they just feel like it takes up so much time to catch up those kids. So, they purposely invite those kids to extra help, to try to get them in, but that maybe only tackles about 30% of them. So there's still a bunch of kids in their class that they just can't move forward in the curriculum with because they were absent, and or they just are not coming extra help either.
And you really do have to feel bad for the kids. It's not easy to sit in front of the computer all day trying to go from class to class. We did our practice day this week on election day of everybody working virtually from home. And, the next day the teachers were all like, this is horrible. I don't know how the kids are doing it. I think the teachers definitely had greater empathy for the kids after going through a day of doing it.
I would agree. My teachers are finding it very challenging. We're in a hybrid model. We also have kids that are fully virtual for the year, and that number has grown. So I'm just surprised, Seth, that your district closed for 2 weeks. We've been open, and we're continuing to see cases here and there throughout the district. But they've talked about 2 or 3 different things: the management issue of talking to the kids at home and making sure that they're engaged during the lesson. Turning to the kids, that are making sure the kids in the class don't feel left out, because they're saying it's taking time just to even sign the kids on and make sure that they're there. And then sometimes the kids sign on and then they walk away. So they're like, John, please, Aunt John, are you there? So that kind of piece is taking a lot of time. I did go to all of my elementary schools in the last 3 weeks, and I talked at length to our 4th and 5th grade teachers. We have all of the K to 5, they're in every day. But our 4th and 5th grade model, they split it. So, and basically our district made a point to speak to the families and say the focus this year has to be on the elementary level for math and English, and science and social studies were given a little less time of instruction. So same thing that you said, the teachers are feeling really overwhelmed on the elementary level about how they're going to get all this curriculum in. And I just really reviewed for them, I have a Google Classroom for them, and I posted some things for them about what the focus is really this year. And we talked about skills. I said the curriculum piece, social studies, is great because it's cyclical and we keep hitting these topics again in more depth at older ages. And I said, on the 4th and 5th grade level, I guarantee you we will get to that 6 through 12, but I really need the skill sets for these kids to make sure that they are engaged. But they're also finding that what you're saying, Seth, about, the kid comes in the next day, they're in person and they say, we talked about this yesterday virtually, and the kid says, I left it home or I don't have it. And it's this constant, back and forth. And a lot of my teachers are expressing, we're such a participatory curriculum. We have so many conversations, and they're really finding it challenging to get the kids to engage. The kids are thrilled to be back, but they are sitting behind, these dividers with the masks on and in the back of the class and away from each other. And even online, having those kids, we started to do breakout rooms, the Google breakout rooms. And, my teachers will say they've gone into the rooms, and one room they're all chatting, and the other room they're just they're doing the chat box. The other one they're actually talking. And they said, how do I get over that? I said, at first we just have to build their comfort again, because they're just really not interacting to the level that we're used to seeing, and that's been hard. And for the high school, it's a challenge every day, because we talk constantly about the Regents exams, and I say, we're like everybody else, we're doing the best that we can, and we're going to continue to try and prepare these kids for the Regents as they're coming in June until we hear otherwise. I don't really know what else you can do, and they're all behind, and they're struggling to find ways to, we've talked on grade levels on ways to modify what they're doing to get the information across to the kids, as well as the skills for the Regents exams.
Yeah, we started talking about like whole unit cuts. Like we have, so for instance, we have an IB program in the high school, but we also have AP classes too. So it's, so I have an IB History of the Americas course where kids prepare for the IB over 2 years, but they also take the AP US exam, and they also take the US Regents. So the teachers will always say to me, they're serving many masters. And because all those numbers are reported to the Board of Education, and that becomes data, they feel beholden to do well in each of those. So on a year like this, that makes it even more challenging. And one of my teachers is even a remote teacher this year. So he's teaching from home through, the screen. So I have that, how, like I'll, part of the message could be, I'll say like, pick what's most meaningful. And like I've said, I don't, there, but
mine are killing me too.
Pool water too.
but when we talk about cutting things, people are very like, weary of that. So I'm sure districts are going to at some point get to that, because if you don't cut things in history, what ends up happening is you don't do the modern day. And some of the stuff that's most meaningful, you don't even get to. So it's like either you'll let the curriculum cut things for you or you'll be proactive in doing it. So we've been trying to get to a point where we'll say, we'll cut this. Here are the ways that kids can do it independently if they want to prepare for the AP exam. You know, because at some point, you know, the hybrid model, you know, and the way curriculum's moving and going out for 2 weeks, you know, and different things, people will happen. Like the Department of Health is usually what makes us stay home, so to speak, for this time. It's not necessarily an in-district decision, but I think we're going to each experience that to some degree this year, and having to decide what's going to be best for our teachers and our kids. And the less is more, focus on skills is probably a good direction, but will boards and will communities support that?
I think for us on the elementary level, you know, we do teachers college as well. So I've given especially the fourth and fifth grade teachers, I gave them some latitude as far as the units in the fourth and fifth grade social studies curriculum. And some of them have now used the units that align more closely with teachers college at the same time, so they can do kind of an ELA social studies model. And that's helping them get through some of the curriculum that they're doing. Yeah, that is the biggest challenge around the high school level. It's constant conversation in the middle school level as well. I mean, we've even talked about midterms and what that's going to look like. You know, I think constantly, you know, we meet with our assistant superintendent, you know, twice a month, and we are having these conversations now and saying, you know, we really are doing everything that we can in a really challenging time. We had parent meetings on Tuesday, and those are conversations we're having in the community too, because as you said, there's a lot of pushback to bring every kid in every day and have everything returned to the way it was. And we just keep trying to explain to the community, we're only doing this because we know this is the best way the kids learn, is by being with us, but we're also trying to keep everybody safe at the same time. And it's just a lot of challenges and stresses this year that we've never seen before. And, you know, we're doing the best that we can. And I think that's what the message has to be. I don't know what else you can say. I mean, my teachers, and I'm sure yours are as well, are just really going above and beyond and answering emails at all hours of the day and night, and, you know, responding to kids in the mornings, and, you know, trying to meet with kids. I've seen teachers sitting at their duties behind the shield with the child sitting there getting extra help during the day if they can. You know, they're trying everything they can. We had to shorten our day because of busing. So our high school day actually ends, our high school periods went from 40 to 36 minutes. So that was another challenge. Like, they lost basically another 10 minutes because there's 4 or 5 minutes of, you know, getting the kids on, setting up the class, and, you know, and 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end, and then we lost 4 minutes. So we you know, we don't have as much time to teach all the curriculum that we did in a quote unquote normal year.
Our school is, I think, decided not to hold midterms this year. Are other districts still holding midterms this year?
We didn't think we could even logistically pull it off, to be honest. Hundreds of kids in the gym, and like, even if you could, like, do you really want to have that many kids in a space, even if they're socially distanced with masks? You know, especially usually the midterms are like the coldest point of the year of having everyone in. So I think there's just, I think we're still kind of waiting through whether the teachers feel the loss of that time. I mean, they might feel the gain of it because they get instructional, they're not disrupted for a week worth of time. But I mean, there's also that sense of like, that was one of the, you know, it's tougher to pull off tests and assessments to begin with, and in the models that we're doing. And now all of a sudden you might take that away too. So I'm sure there are going to be competing ideas, but I don't think we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's still up in the air for us. No decisions have been made, but the teachers feel they'd rather have that time to actually be with their students. As of now, they're planning to bring back all of our secondary students December 1st. Still trying to figure out if they're going to be walking around carrying shields, leaving them. I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking that we're going to bring them all back and not end up out 2 weeks later. But I think the feeling from the teachers is I'd rather have instructional time with the kids.
I'm interested, since the marking period is coming to a close soon, what grading policies have been like, and what's worked maybe, and just thinking about assessments and grading while the marking period is coming to a close.
I think right now, it's the Wild West. I think a lot of people are doing a lot of different things. We've tried to encourage the teachers to be flexible, to be understanding, but at some point the kids do have to turn work in. They do have to, participate and do some of the work. We're actually meeting as directors to try to come up with some kind of grading philosophy now, which I don't know that this is really the right time to try to do that and then impose something like that on the teachers. But it is. I think the phone calls will start coming once grades are posted for the quarter.
In our district, which has the hybrid model like Seth's, where we have some in every day, some home every day, and then the rest are every other day. In addition to the big issues of attendance or lack thereof, and turning in work or lack thereof, we're also grappling with assessments too. And it really needs to change. So unfortunately, we had this in the back of our minds when we closed last year. We all knew about and were preparing for COVID slide that they're calling. But I think the alarm bells are really sounding now. We had our interim reports, and I'm focusing mostly 6 through 12 secondary. For the high school, where we would have, comments of in danger of failing for the first marking period. Last year, we had 28 entries. This year, we had over 900. So people are worried, kids are worried, parents are worried. And we're trying to figure out what solutions we can offer. And of course, our message has always been, be gentle, be kind, be caring, focus on the skills. But the teachers are really worried about assessment and how to assess the students, especially, not just formatively, but summatively. We gave suggestions using Go Guardian, Open Book, more project-based assessments. But the bottom line is, if the students are not there and they're not participating and they're not doing the work, they're not going to be successful on the assessment. So, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, and that's why I've been quiet for so long, but this is real, and we're very worried, and we're grappling with it. So I'm usually one of those people who are the glass half full and very optimistic about things. So I'm very grateful for this group. I'm grateful for all the resources, and I do share them with my teachers. And that has been very helpful. I think once we get word from the state as to what's going to happen with the Regents exams, I'm with Seth. I don't feel comfortable bringing kids into a gym and testing in January for midterms. And I'm not so sure what's June's going to look like either. I mean, are we going to have them sitting outside in tents? Those are just my thoughts.
No, Teresa, thank you for sharing. And you're not a Debbie Downer. This is the reality that we're facing right now, right? And it wears on us. We're all trying to do our best, and at points we have to acknowledge that it feels like we're kind of spinning our wheels, right? Because we don't know really what our end goal is. And I think that if the state were to come out and say, hey, we're not going to have Regents, there would be a collective sigh of relief, and we would be able to really focus on things like Jeff is talking about in the chat box, where you could work with your teachers on common informative assessments. You could take a look at the projects that you're doing and you could really focus on that, but nobody is going to give 100% into shifting that much until they know that they're not going to be held accountable for APPR and all of those tests that we're doing. And so, you know, you bring up valuable points. I am going to have to skedat in a couple of minutes, Corinne, just to get the other Zoom meeting open. But any other questions out there for the group? And thank you so much. Honestly, I'm going to do my little spiel a little bit early here. Thank you so much for everything that you are doing. And if you are not being told how much you are appreciated, then let Corinne and I sit here and tell you we appreciate the fact that you are getting up every morning, you are coming in, you are working with your teachers, you are taking on a lot of responsibilities that you could never have prepared for. And so we are wholeheartedly so thankful for everything that you're doing for your staff, which trickles down to your students. And, you know, this is a really challenging year and you are doing amazing things. Even though it doesn't feel like that during the day, you are doing amazing things and we truly appreciate it. So I will see you in the other meeting. I'm going to stop recording.